Good morning everyone. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Dear committee, dear participants, in this time I'm going to present my paper which has title Students' Competence Improvement in Fiction Writing through Visual Symbol on Language Features Innovations. This paper is written by me, Nur Antoni, and advised by Professor Yan Mujianto, Dr. Dwi Anggani, and Dr. Hendy Pratama. Now we begin from the abstract. This study discovered that many students were still puzzled about the use of each tense and word order in writing fictions while learning the lesson Learning English via Literature. The goal of this study is to provide a useful book for students to write fictions using linguistic elements in visual symbols at the English Language and Literature Education Study Program. And the precise objectives of this study are: first, produce a fiction writing technique book based on reader responses to literature; second, develop an applicable book for writing fictions; and third, develop an effective book for writing story based on linguistic elements in visual symbol. And to prove this, self-assessment, expert panels, one-to-one evaluations, and fast prototyping are the research and development methods used. As a result, the technique of creating fictions employing visual symbol language elements depend on the reader's response is effective. Go on to introductions. Many students, according to researchers or the previous researchers, still struggle to understand the peculiarities of language aspects, notably tenses and word order when writing. And this article outlines a framework for producing visual symbols for tenses and word order that can aid students in understanding and writing fictions. Despite the fact that visual symbols are useful and advantageous, the researcher argues that they have never been used in the classroom when teaching writing fictions. The goal of this research is to suggest visual symbol innovations as a solution to the aforementioned problems. In theoretical study, I present two theories. First, from Duck and Eves. They said that graphic organizers are visual and spatial symbols that use arrows, lines, and circles to express the content, structure, and basic conceptual linkage of a passage. So, the visual symbol is another word of graphic organizer. And second, from Marzano, Pickering, and Pollock, they said that graphic organizers are tools that indicate relationships by combining linguistic forms such as words and phrases with non-linguistic forms such as symbols and arrows. Go on to the method. The overall goal of this research was to create a textbook as recommended by Tesmer and Dick and Carey. This study comprised 3 steps. First, producing goods based on literary reading reactions and needs, examining tactics and situations, and selecting materials. The goods here means a textbook. And then second, revising product development. And then third, assessing how well a product is used. Now we go on to result and discussions. And the result and discussion. First, I present the epithet table. DI here means descriptive enumerator, SI means size, A means age, T means temperature, SIH means shape, C means color, M means materials, PA means possessive adjective. And then the second table here, D means determiner, and determiner has some kinds. Those are articles such as a and the, possessive such as any, your, our, her, his, demonstrative such as this, that, this, those, quantitatives such as some, many, a lot of, much, little, any, few, and so on. And then O, ordinative. For example, 1, 2, 3, second, first. And then E means epithet. Epithet is compound adjectives. For example, nice, fantastic, strong, beautiful, small, and so on. And then C, classifying. Classifying means nouns that function as adjective. For example, American man. American is classifying. And then H means head. Head is the noun itself, the main noun. Go on to the example of tenses symbol. The graphic symbols in the booklet will not only help students comprehend the differences between each tense context of time, but the explanation will also demonstrate and guide them in determining which tense a sentence belongs to. This is significant because many students become confused about how to correctly compose with statement with tense, especially for compound clauses with two or more tenses. When there are two or more tenses in a compound sentence, they continue to make mistakes. According to the students' questionnaires, the majority of students respond that this booklet opened their knowledge faster than other booklet or previous explanations. Yeah, these visual symbols of tenses, and we can know that from this schema the students will be easier to find out or to define time context of each tense. Okay, we go on to students' perspective toward fiction writing textbook. Students believe that practical technical assistance books that made fiction writing easy to write were needed to help their fiction writing activities. They recognize that creating fiction remained a challenging task. As a result, this book was completed with a number of activities, including understanding literary response activities, writing selected fictions with full appreciation, writing after writing fictions, looking at the essential aspect of fiction writing, looking at fiction's writing strategies, and criticizing examples of authors' elements fiction. Okay, now we go on to expert validations. According to the experts, the design of this book was adequate in general, both in terms of instructional demands and the purpose of producing fictions. The layout between the description and the example needed to be distinguished in order to make it more intriguing and clear. Interchange comprehensions, concept, and exercise were required in terms of presentation. Learning should begin with a conceptual knowledge, followed by practice reading or writing, and last, control by the underlying theory. The expert that this draft was good in terms of learning implementation validation. This book was used to aid students in responding to language features of fictions, understanding, enjoying, and writing fiction successfully, and was assessed for ease of use. Now we go on to one-to-one assessment. Students in the moderate ability group argue that the book's draft was clear. He should concentrate on thinking in order to grasp specific topics. He found the works out to be difficult to accomplish. Nonetheless, he was impressed that the draft book provided directions for responding to and writing complete fictions. Students in the high ability category comment on the book's clarity. He finds it to be very clear. Nonetheless, he anticipates the need for more response and fiction writing tasks. In terms of beauty and acceptance, he was drawn to the activities described in the book. In fact, he found the book of fiction language aspects in visual symbol to be extremely useful in both responding to fictions and practice writing them in their totality. He was struck by the fact that he was developing a desire to write fictions as a result of this fact. Small group assessment. Clarity of writing, content appropriateness, approach efficacy, sample relevance, and interaction quality were all factors in determining effectiveness. The majority of them responded positively. And content attractiveness, difficulties for students, want to learn, desire to utilize, value-added learning, and timeliness were all considered beneficial in terms of interest and motivations. Okay, now we go on to effectiveness evaluations. A pretest and post-test were undertaken to examine if the fiction's writing book generated had an impact on students' learning outcomes, means fiction writing competence. The pretest was completed prior to the lecture using fiction writing textbook, and the post-test was completed after the students had finished using this book. Okay, so I'm going to explain table 1. The mean standard deviations. The pretest means 83.48, and then the standard 12.77, and then post-test means 65.23. The standard has 11.79. It was discovered that the average in two groups was different, as shown in table 1. The average post-test score was 83.48 with a standard deviations 12.77 compared to 65.23 on the pretest with a standard deviations of 11.79. As a result, there were scores that differed, and the t-test with one sample test was employed to examine the significance of the differences in both of them. And then now table 2 shows the result of two groups tests. Table 2, t-test by using one sample test, grade equal O. Pretest for the T 96.03 and the F 39 means 83.48, and then significant from to till 0.00. And then post test for T 92.02 and then the F 39 means 65.27, significance 0.00. The t-test finding were P equal with 0.00 less than P equal 0.05 as shown in table 2. To put it another way, there were discrepancies in the result of students who were taught using fictions writing textbooks against students who were not. As a result, there was a substantial change between pre and post-test result in terms of students' fiction writing ability. Now we go on to the discussions. The technical book writing fictions based on reader responses with 82 pages also very effective in the fictions writing test, as it was compiled by considering the perspective of the student through internal assessment of researchers, expert validation, and assessment of students in one-to-one and small groups with positive responses. Internal assessors, professionals, and a number of students thought this book was appropriate during the creation process. These books included response principles and practical tactics for writing fictions, as well as writing tasks in part of whole. The combinations of understanding principles with real-world activities offered in a diverse or alternating order in implementing them, incorporating reader feedback could encourage students to stay vigilant in their learning, especially when it comes to writing fictions. The conclusions of this paper. In terms of the book's usefulness, it was discovered that the language aspects in the visual symbol book were effective when applied to students. In writing fiction, there are disparities in learning results between examinations taken before and after utilizing the book. The gap in average score is enormous. Use of the reader response strategy in writing fictions necessitates two adequate fiction selections, response aims, and more extensive explanations, among other suggestions that might be addressed in similar studies. Furthermore, providing a detailed description of the phases makes it easier to apply in writing. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.